Moving now to news from Sikkim, protests have erupted and in fact protesters have set a deadline of 7 days for the state government to act. The Chief Minister has also called for an emergency session of the Assembly on February 9th. The main opposition party SDF has called for a 48 hours bandh starting today. Now, why is all of this happening? This is over a Supreme Court reference to Nepalis as persons of foreign origin. The Supreme Court in an observation referred to Sikkimese Nepalis as persons of foreign origin. The government has filed a review petition at the Supreme Court as well. Let's just look at what the Supreme Court really said. The Supreme Court's observation in Association of Old Settlers of Sikkim versus Union of India case. This is the case under which the Supreme Court made this observation. The Supreme Court, while talking about the Sikkim Income Tax Manual 1948, said that all persons engaged in business were subject to tax irrespective of their origin. Therefore, there was no difference made out between the original inhabitants of Sikkim, namely the Bhutia Lepchas, and the persons of foreign origin settled in Sikkim, like the Nepalese or persons of Indian origin who had settled down in Sikkim generations back. This was the exact quote from the Supreme Court. Let's just go across to my colleague Ratnadeep Chaudhary for more on this. Ratnadeep, we're seeing those visuals of protests, and of course, as we've mentioned, the opposition has called for a bandh. An emergency session has been called by the Chief Minister. So take us through this entire observation that came out, and what are the points of contention that the protesters have?
That's right. In fact, as we speak, the bandh, the 48-hour bandh called by the Sikkim Democratic Front, led by former Chief Minister Pawan Kumar Chamling, which is the main opposition party in the state, has begun. We are playing out those visuals of the impact of bandh. In fact, what sources are telling us that there have been a bit of confrontation also between the supporters of the SDF and the supporters of ruling Sikkim Krantikari Morcha over the bandh, given the fact that the state government has decided to now call for an emergency session which will take place on February 9. The protesting groups had formed a joint action committee, and over the past couple of days, the protest had taken, gathered momentum. Now, these protests are against the Supreme Court observation that you have pointed out. This Supreme Court observation actually was on January 13th, while Supreme Court gave its verdict on the petition filed by the Association of Old Settlers of Sikkim, who demanded exemption of income tax for the old settlers who have settled in Sikkim before its merger with India in 1975. So, while giving that verdict, this was part of observation. But since the Nepali community is the majority community in Sikkim, so therefore there were reactions to it. The people are protesting more against the state government because the protesting groups have been saying that when the Supreme Court proceedings were on, that the state government also could not represent the properly, and therefore the angst is perhaps against state government. And now it seems that there is a bit of politicking happening with the main opposition party also joining the protest. And in fact, the health minister of Sikkim had also resigned. So that has been a setback for the government. He has resigned, and Mr. Manikumar Sharma saying, his resignation is as a mark of protest against government's failure to respond to Supreme Court's observation. There have been angst against the additional Advocate General of Sikkim, Sudesh Joshi. In fact, Mr. Joshi had also resigned. So there is a bit of a shimmering protest which is being observed in Sikkim for the past couple of days, and now this 48-hour bandh called by SDF has started. However, the Chief Minister has now he met the members of the Joint Action Committee actually in state capital Gangtok, and he has convened a special emergency session of the State Legislative Assembly on February 9th.
Right, of course, as Ratnadeep mentioned, that the bandh that has been called by the SDF, the opposition, has now begun. Thanks, Ratnadeep, for joining us with those details.